On this episode of Day Tripping, we're going to be exploring the birthplace of a city and meeting just a few of the cultures that inhabit it. We're also going to learn of a time when a small town stood up against an invading army. Because today, we're going to be visiting El Pueblo de Nuestra, El Pueblo de Nuestra Senora, El Pueblo de Nuestra Senora, the original city name, El Pueblo de Nuestra Senora Reina de Los Angeles.
So you said it good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome.
You said it good.
Because today we'll be visiting El Pueblo de Nuestra... I just said it to those guys. Were you recording that? Luckily, it's more simply known as El Pueblo de Los Angeles, the birthplace of Los Angeles. Now, I know there's probably a bunch of guidebooks and videos out there telling you what to do in downtown Los Angeles. And if you're from here, you've probably been down there many times. Well, I'm going to try to approach it from a historical point of view and a cultural point of view and point out the little things that I find interesting, and I hope you do too. All right, enough of my talking. Let's get on with this trip.
This trip wanders about the northeastern part of downtown Los Angeles and through some of the oldest parts of the city. It's about a 2-mile loop starting and ending at Union Station. To get to the start of this trip, take the red, purple, or gold lines to Union Station and make your way to the waiting room.
All right, so there's no better place to start a trip to downtown Los Angeles than a Union Station. At one time, this was the primary entry point into Los Angeles, and they built it to show off the LA lifestyle. I mean, when you get off the train and you walk into that waiting room, I'm telling you, the site, it's an impressive sight.
Built in 1939, Union Station is the largest railroad passenger terminal in the western United States and is regarded as the last of the great train stations. And it's easy to lose track of time in its vast waiting room as you take in the towering 40-foot windows, the massive Art Deco chandeliers, and the inlaid marble floors. Off to the side of the main entrance is the spacious ticket hall, equipped with a 110-foot-long ticket counter, crafted from American black walnut. Today it's closed to the public, but you may have seen it as the set for the futuristic Los Angeles Police Department in the movie Blade Runner.
So one note about the architecture in the waiting room at Union Station is if you look up at the wooden beams in the ceiling, well, they're not made of wood. They're actually made of steel that's painted to look like wood. Now, Union Station, it's a great-looking building with some great architecture and great interior design. But when I look at it, I also see a giant historical monument, one that represents in a very bold way the origins and birthplace of Los Angeles. So it was right over there that the Spanish first came to settle and farm this land, and the Chinese built their first Chinatowns in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles was founded in 1781 when 44 settlers, known as pobladores, arrived from Senora to farm the land on a site near the Los Angeles River. They set up a church and a central plaza, and they called their new town El Pueblo de Nuestra Senora Reina de Los Angeles. After the Mexican-American War, when the United States acquired the area through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, the plaza remained the center of the town. But as the city expanded, the original settlement was neglected, and by the late 20s, it was considered a slum. You can actually see how it looked in Charlie Chaplin's 1921 film, The Kid. Around 1928, a woman by the name of Christine Sterling took an interest in the area and began a movement to preserve California's authentic heritage, and began a plan of turning Olvera Street into a Mexican market and cultural plaza. Today, it's a romanticized version of Mexican culture, and with its abundance of restaurants, vendors, and museums, it is sometimes viewed as an ethnic theme park for tourists.
I just love coming down here. It's got so many great shops, got so many crazy little things to see, and it's the only place I know where I can find these things. They're called obleas. It's this sweet little wafer roundness of joy that the only other place I found them was in Colombia. And they sell them here. You can get them the big ones, or you can get them really small.
But what I really love about Olvera Street is reading all the signs that tell us about what the buildings used to be. It's also the little things, like the brick path that runs through the street. It marks the route of one of the zanjas, or the original irrigation system built by the early settlers.
You can also come down here and find the oldest house in Los Angeles, the Avila Adobe. It'll give you a sense of what life was like in the 1840s.
Originally built in 1818 by Francisco Jose Avila, it has since been the home to many of his family members and descendants. In January of 1847, the house served as a temporary military headquarters for Commodore Stockton after he took control of Los Angeles during the Mexican-American War. It was very temporary, as it only lasted 3 days. The adobe eventually fell into ruin, and as with Olvera Street, it was through the efforts of Christine Sterling that the Adobe was saved, and today you can come and take a free tour of the house. An interesting note about the Adobe: the original roof was built with tar from the La Brea tar pits, and during its renovation, prisoners were used as laborers.
All right, here we are at the old plaza. Most days when you come here, you'll find performers playing music. And you'll also find the statue of King Charles III of Spain. He was the one that ordered the establishment of the Los Angeles settlement. Now, today in America, we're going through this national debate of what to do with Confederate statues or monuments that might have some representation of slavery. Well, back in 1987, the debate was that this statue represented Spanish colonial rule and all the bad things that came with it. And it was actually the King of Spain at the time, Juan Carlos I, who suggested that instead of destroying it, we move it from its original location of MacArthur Park to where it stands today.
Around the old plaza, you'll find the Church of Our Lady Queen of Angels, which was founded in 1814 atop the ruins of the first mission of Los Angeles. An example of a 19th century firehouse. The Pico House, which is named after Pio Pico, the last Mexican governor of Alta California, and the Chinese American Museum.
So the original Chinatown, it extended up into this area around here. And in the 1870s, with the rampant anti-Chinese sentiment sweeping the West, a riot broke out in this area that left 19 Chinese men dead. And now it's said that those dead, they still haunt the Pico House. Now, I don't know about that, but I love haunted houses, so they should just run with it. Now, if you resist to get any food over on Olvera Street, or even if you did, I recommend stopping by Philippe's.
Philippe's has the distinction of being the place where the French dip sandwich was created, and being established in 1908, it is one of the oldest and best-known restaurants in all of Southern California. The story goes that one day in 1918, the cook accidentally dropped a French roll into the roasting pan that was filled with hot roast beef drippings. The patron said he would take the sandwich, and the next day he returned with his friends asking for more.
The place is pretty cool. It's all self-seating in deli style, and the people that give you your food are called carvers. And it's even got the cheapest coffee in LA. I think they raised their prices a couple of years ago, and now it's 46 cents.
Just 2 blocks north of Philippe's and Olvera Street is Chinatown. You know you're there when you see the dragons at the corner of Cesar Chavez and Broadway. In the 1860s, the Central Pacific Railroad hired thousands of Chinese men to work on the western portion of the first transcontinental railroad. Many of them would settle in Los Angeles. Today, Chinatown encompasses less than a square mile, but that square mile is just packed with shops and restaurants.
This is another one of those areas I just love coming to. I like coming down to Chinatown, wandering around, checking out the shops, and taking the long walk down here to the Chinese Plaza. It's a little bit of a walk, but it's well worth coming down here.
The Central Plaza of Chinatown was designed by film set designers, and its buildings are lined with neon that light up the night.
Another thing I love about this area is all the food choices. You know, aside from Philippe's and the Mexican food down in Olvera Street, over here we have the Chinese restaurants. Right across the street we have a hot wings and taco stand. Right on the corner over there we got a seafood restaurant. A little bit further down we got the Little Jewel of New Orleans, which is a Cajun food place. And then there's the Spring Street Smokehouse, which has got some great barbecue. So, you know, if you're more of a foodie and listen to the whole history thing, this is probably one of the best areas you can come to in Los Angeles. All right, so if you still have energy after checking out Olvera Street and wandering around Chinatown, there's one more thing in the area I think you should check out.
Head south down Hill Street, and you'll come to what I believe is the coolest and most overlooked thing in the area, the Fort Moore Pioneer Memorial.
So I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, there was a fort in Los Angeles? Why, yes, there was. Check it out.
In the summer of 1846, shortly after the beginning of the Mexican-American War, Commodore Stockton arrived in Los Angeles and raised the American flag without firing a shot. He left Captain Gillespie behind with 50 Marines to occupy the town. But it wasn't long before his overbearing nature drove the residents of Los Angeles into open revolt. In the face of 600 angry Californios, Captain Gillespie was forced to take a fortified position up on the hill above the town. After a week-long siege, Gillespie was given an ultimatum: leave Los Angeles or die. Given the limited options, he chose to withdraw from the town. It would take both Commodore Stockton and Colonel Fremont nearly 3 months and several battles to reclaim the town. Construction of a fort began on the site almost immediately, but it wasn't until the arrival of the Mormon Battalion in March of 1847 that construction of Fort Moore began in earnest. The fort was decommissioned in 1853, after which the area became a playground, a beer garden, a mansion, a cemetery, and finally, several high schools.
All that's left to remind us of the history and the fort that once stood here is this memorial. And I think it's a fitting memorial. It's big, it's bold, it tells a story, and it overlooks all of old LA. I mean, it did before all this construction was going on. And you can imagine 170 years ago, when up on that cliff stood a fort overlooking the settlement down here, it was a pretty dominant feature. Well, in 2017, they remodeled the whole thing. And I don't know what's going on right now as I'm shooting this video, but I really do hope that they're cleaning it up so that people can come back here and once again view the history of not only California, but of the United States. So now that you've seen the Fort Moore Pioneer Memorial, you have a couple of choices. You can either head back to Union Station, the metro station there, and head on home. Or if you got enough energy, you can continue downhill to Grand Avenue and check out my video for that part of downtown Los Angeles. And you know, you don't have to take this trip in the order that I showed you. You can go to Chinatown, then Olvera Street, or start off at the Pioneer Memorial. It's totally up to you. And I've only scratched the surface of this area. I mean, there's a 250-year history here. I couldn't go over all of it in this 10-minute video. And all over the place, there are these little signs. And I mean, they're on the ground here all along. So if you like what I'm doing, let me know in the comments below. And if I've left something out that you really like to see in this area, let us know. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming day trips. And thank you for watching the videos. And until next time, be safe and have a great trip.